And you know what I'm about to say. Buonasera a tutti. Good evening, everybody. It is September 18th, 2025, just past 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Hope everybody's doing well. Welcome to What's the Scoop, episode number 84. This is my buddy and longtime podcast co-host, Mr. Brandon Furtado. Brandon, how you doing, buddy?
Can't complain, Scoop. It's been a little bit of a tumultuous week for our Yanks, I guess, to say the least. But you know, we're feeling good after winning a series in Minnesota like we always do. So we'll get into that a little bit more tonight. And so far, so good.
We absolutely will. And yes, I think tumultuous is a very fair and accurate word to use. I think that's kind of been the par for the course through most of 2025. Some people might say going back to 2010, that's the word that could be applicable. But again, we're going to talk about it. We talked. A lot of us talked about the 12 game stretch that just concluded a few days ago and what that was going to mean and how pivotal that was. We're going to get into that. Do also just want to make a recognition of our co-host, who's obviously conspicuously not here with us right now. That is our buddy Jay Kruger. Just for anybody who is watching, Jay is fine. Just had a little bit of an issue travel-wise, but he is coming back tonight. Hopefully, we'll get a chance to see him. But if not, we're excited to have him back next week. I know the show will not be the same without him, but just wanted him to know we're thinking about him and wanted everybody to know he is okay and he'll be back soon. So with that being said, let's get right into it, man. I know we joke about it every week, it seems like, but it's for legitimate and justifiable reasons. There's the old quote from the Al Davis Raiders. What was it? Any given Sunday, and at this point on this show, it seems like every given Thursday, we can rely on the fact that headlines in sports are going to completely disorient the way we plan to lead off this show, and that once again happens out of Major League Baseball with one of the greatest to ever do it out of Los Angeles. Clayton Kershaw announcing, the team announcing this is Clayton Kershaw's last hurrah as not only as a member of the Dodgers, but as a pitcher in MLB, going to hang it up after this season. So a lot of people who thought that maybe he would leave LA to spend a little time in Texas before he retired, that does not appear to be in the cards. It appears his career will end after this season, and he will be yet another legend to spend it all with the LA Dodgers. So, I mean, a lot of shows are going to go in and talk about, the statistics of Kershaw and what he's done throughout his career. Truly, an all-time great. It's one thing to be, and it's impressive in and of its own right. It's one thing to be, one of the greatest to do it in your day. But no, I think a lot of us can agree that this is somebody who, dominated it to a level that makes him one of the greatest to ever do it in any generation. And Brandon, my friend, what were your thoughts about the Kershaw thing? Did it surprise you at all? Did you think that it was potentially coming this offseason? And just also speak a little bit about what your thoughts on Kershaw's career and this announcement today.
Yeah, I figured it was coming. I think that over the last really since over the last 3, 4, 5 years, he's been injured a little bit. We knew that eventually he would get to the milestones probably that he was getting to. The 3,000 strikeouts, and he's got over 200 wins in his career. Which I know wins are not a big thing anymore for pitchers, but they're still important. You still, as a pitcher, you still want to get the win, when you pitch as a starter. But I definitely think that you can't talk about baseball history, at least pitching wise, and not think about Clayton Kershaw. I mean, especially with how many great Dodger pitchers there have been in the last 40 years, 50 years, more than that. Sorry, clear my throat. But it's definitely it's also hard not to talk about when you talk about lefties in the modern era. Everybody talks about we talk about guys like CC, we talk about a couple other a lot of good lefties, but Clayton Kershaw was probably the best out of all of them, and it's really hard to not to also just the Dodgers' success over the last kind of 15 years and being in the World Series, quite a few times and winning two of them. And you can't think about all of that is he's contributed to a lot of their success. I mean, that's an understatement. It's really contributed to how many countless playoff wins. How many? I mean, he's not has been a great playoff pitcher in his career, but he has contributed to a lot of their wins. He's contributed, regular season. They wouldn't be where they were for so many years if it wasn't for him. I mean, he was the ace of the staff for pretty much his entire tenure in LA. I just look at as a body of work. I mean, longevity is hard to come by for pitchers these days, like health wise. I mean, right now it's funny because he's rebounded nicely compared to where he was last year. Last year he wasn't healthy, didn't have a good season when he did pitch. But the crazy thing about Kershaw is it seems like he's never lost his stuff. Like, I mean, as he's gotten old, I mean, it just feels like he's been consistent. As long as he's been healthy, he's been consistent. I mean, I'm looking at it right now. I mean, even since COVID, in the COVID year, he had a 2.16 ERA in 10 starts with a 6-2 record. The year after, he got 110 games for 3.55, which, I mean, that's not the best numbers for his career, but those are really good numbers for a pitcher, starting pitcher. Year after, 12-3 with a 2.28 ERA. I mean, he was a little unhealthy, missed 8 games or so, or 8-9 games, but still a great season. The year after that, even better, 13-5 with a 2.46 ERA, 24 games, a few more innings pitched, but he was always big in terms of. He was never a guy that would give up a lot of home runs in a season. He was never a guy that really, would falter on the mound in pressure situations, especially in the regular season. Just an all-around dominant, dynamic, pitcher. And I mean, with such a, it's crazy to look back at it when it's like we all can, we're all of the age where we can remember him making his first starts as a Dodger. And now here we are at the end of it. Guy's 37 years old, but not many guys make it to their late 30s pitching anymore. And if they do, they usually lose a step. But he hasn't. I mean, this year he was an all-star this year, and that speaks to him kind of going out. I mean, he wants to go out with a ring. That's first and foremost. But I mean, if he doesn't, when you look at the numbers, that's a pretty damn good way to go out when you look at what he did this year. So. I mean, still going out at near the top of his game, if not the top. And man, what a career! Won 20 games multiple times. Twice. Always especially in his prime, always dialed in on that mound. Like him. When you think about the pitchers of kind of his era that were around, that were dominant, you think of. I mean, not just lefties, but you just think of pitchers in general. Like you got to think of guys like Cliff Lee. Like a CC, like a Verlander, a Max Scherzer, all these different guys, and he's probably the best out of all of them, save maybe Verlander, but still he's the best lefty out of all of them. So, and he's definitely probably the second best behind Verlander. I would think. People have different views of that, but. I just, what a career. 3,000 strikeouts is also a thing you just don't see anymore in pitchers that often. And he got it done. That was kind of the last milestone to pretty much check off on his Hall of Fame resume.
Right.
So, first ballot Hall of Famer, first ballot person. I mean, you never hear anything about him. Off the field, he kind of keeps to himself. He's kind of a private guy that way. And he just goes out there, takes the ball every 5 days, and did his job for so many years. So that's he was a workhorse in his prime. He's still dominant even today, and that's a hell of a career for him to kind of go out on.
Couldn't have said it better myself at all, really. And I'm glad you hit on a couple of the points about being a workhorse and. His big game moments. Real quick, I'm just going to acknowledge a couple. We've got Mr. Roy Osborne in the comments saying, "Hey there, Switchy Scoops, long time no talk. How you doing, Mr. Osborne? Hope you're doing well." But yeah, to kind of follow up on a couple points that you made, and Absolutely. I think you really nailed an important point with the workhorse comments. I'm going to add on to that because I don't think sometimes it gets enough credit. Just they say the best ability is availability, and Kershaw, obviously, as he got older, was banged up a little bit. But to go back a little, just to the beginning part of his career, and I'll just take 2010 to 2015. In those 6 seasons, this guy got 200 innings pitched or higher in 5 of those 6 seasons, and in the one season he didn't, he missed it by less than 2 innings. So, and only 2 guys since then have done it more than 3 times in the past decade, and he did it almost 6. And the only guys to do it more than 3 times in the past decade were Cole and Verlander, and Verlander last did it 6 years ago. So Cole is really the only one to do it in this modern game today. So just immense respect for him. And another thing that I want to mention, because I think sometimes I hope it doesn't hold. I hope it doesn't get held against him with regard to his postseason, perceived struggles or shortcomings in the postseason. I hope that doesn't get held against him too badly. But what I do want to mention with regard to that is this. There was a narrative about him, not coming up in big games or coming up short in the postseason. Going back to 2020, now if people are gonna pick nits about, that was a Mickey Mouse ring or whatever, that's I'm not here to argue that part of it. The fact of the matter is, it was agreed upon how 2020 was going to be played. 2020 played out as that was agreed upon, and the Dodgers won the World Series that year. He was responsible for 4 wins in the 2020 playoffs. He had a whip of under 1. It was 0.91, and a fielding independent ERA of under 3 in 5 postseason starts. Across his whole postseason career, which we've been told outside of the year that they won the World Series, we've been told that that's been mid, as they say. He's got a fielding independent ERA of 3.81. His whip is just over 1.1, and he averages 5 innings pitched per appearance across 39 appearances in an era where bullpen games are more common than ever in October. So I think also that narrative about him, not showing up in big games, it may have been true at one point, but it honestly kind of reminds me a little bit of the Lamar Jackson conversation, where because it was true in the beginning of his career, that narrative and that cloud is kind of held over him a little bit longer toward now that he's become a veteran and whatever. But when it comes time to have his Hall of Fame debate, if he's anything less than a first ballot Hall of Famer, something went very, very wrong. And the only thing I can come up with would either be the injuries at the end of his career or the postseason resume. But even the postseason resume, I think is not, something that should be held against him with the way that things finished out for him at the end of the career and how pivotal he was to that ring in 2020. And also on top of that, people talk about how if you don't have the durability per se, you better have the higher peak. Like it's kind of the Michael Jordan thing, right? If you're not going to have the LeBron durability, you better have a peak that's higher than anybody else. At his best, for several years, there was nobody you more said, oh bleep, if you had to face him that night, especially in a must-win game, than Clayton Kershaw. And I thank God he played his entire career in the NL West. But yeah, I wanted to acknowledge that that broke a couple of hours ago, right before we were supposed to go on. Well, not right before, but relatively late in the day. So we wanted to get that acknowledged. Just whenever an all-time great like him is announcing, and I gotta respect this. I don't typically have a problem with players whether they decide to announce it prior to the season or announce it right at the end of the season. I don't really feel strongly either way. Some people think it's attention seeking to do it at the beginning of the season. Some people think, it's not fair to fans to do it too late in the season. I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other, but I do give him credit, because for somebody who's played in LA his whole career, he's never shied away from the spotlight, but he's also not going to go out of his way to hog it, if that makes sense. And I think that, I don't know if this was something that he saw coming for, a good chunk of the year or not, but I do have respect for the fact that he, I don't know. I feel like he just handled it in a way that's very Clayton Kershaw. He knows how great he is. He doesn't need to remind everybody of it because his game reminds everybody of it. And again, just so I just wanted to bring that up as well. Coming off of that, all right. So as you and I and Jay have discussed ad nauseum, both in and out of this show over the last couple of weeks, the Yankees just wrapped up a 12-game series that was likely to be a particular, if not a make or break for the season, then about as close as one can get to it. They wrap up that 12-game series going 7-5 between the Blue Jays, Astros, Red Sox, and Tigers combined. It's ironic that I did that because we often say, somewhat jokingly and somewhat not, that the Yankees' biggest opponent is themselves. So that was kind of an ironic Freudian slip there. But all that being said, all right, 12. We saw the 12 games. I'm going to get into Minnesota in a little bit, but keeping them out of the equation, just that 12 games that we watched between those four teams, because those are the four teams that we're likely to have to face at least one of them, if not more, in October. We're not going to have to face the Twins. So from what you saw, did that impact at all those four series about how you saw this team? Did that impact, how you see the teams that we face as potential opponents? Did you learn anything about this team or about a potential postseason that you didn't know going into it, or did anything get reaffirmed or anything of that nature?
I think looking at it, 7-5 is about what a lot of us thought they were gonna be. So that kind of doesn't really, if everybody's saying that before the start of that stretch, then that kind of shows you what we were thinking already with this team. Like they're going to kind of be somewhere around the 500 mark with those 12 games. And, I mean, that's exactly what they did. So it didn't move the needle too much. I mean, it was nice to see them win a series against Toronto, win a series against Houston, win a series against Boston. Like those three, they couldn't beat them pretty much all year. And then you get to the Tigers series. That's the one where it's like if there's one that they let get away, like if they would have finished 8-4, I would have had a little bit more optimism about where this team is going. But watching the bullpen blow the first two games of that series was just rough. I mean, I think both Warren and Rodon started that series, and they both gave you 6 innings of 2-run ball. You should win that every time if you're the Yankees. And the lineup just didn't really hit well in those first two games. I mean, they salvaged the third game. Although, looking at it, the Tigers looked like they were happy to win this. It just looked like they were happy to win the series.
Right.
They weren't like there wasn't. They had a TBD, pitcher go out there for the third game, and it was kind of just like almost like a. I hate using the term always, but kind of like a punt lineup, punt game. So. I would have felt better had they won one of those two games against Detroit and made it 8-4 over the 12 games. But the one thing at least they showed is that they can hit better pitching than what they were doing before that stretch. So that's a little bit encouraging. It's just that it gets dragged down by the fact that the bullpen has been so bad that it's there's literally the Yankees bullpen has been so bad that it's literally they said only like a couple teams are worse than they are in terms of like ERA and all these different pitching metrics and things like that, and the teams that they're only slightly better than are all missing the playoffs. So that's not good when you get lumped in with all of that. And they would need to figure that out. I mean, I don't even know how much you really figure out by this point with 9 games left after tonight. I don't know what you can really do about the bullpen at that point. That's the only problem is there's not many, in my eyes, that 12-game series showed me that the Yankees don't quite know who they can trust in that bullpen.
Right.
And they don't know, and the guys that are in that bullpen are just not showing up. I mean, Luke Weaver's all of a sudden. I mean, I still think they rushed him back too early.
Yeah.
I don't think he's healthy, and I know people want to start blaming a few of his performances for being really bad and really rough, and he'll never admit to being hurt in the middle of a postseason run, at the end of the season. But they said originally his injury was going to be what 3-4 weeks. They rushed him back in about 2.
Mhm.
So there's no way he's pitching healthy. That'd be a miracle if he was. Um, we haven't seen much out of Doval the last few games. Really, we haven't seen him at all.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Is have we seen it? Have we seen much out of him since he came over from San Francisco?
Yeah, that tells me that they don't trust him to use him, and
Yeah,
when he has
they,
pitched, he just hasn't been good.
yeah.
Uh,
They talk about Boone's circle of trust, and I don't think that um, I don't think that Doval has been in that at any point since he's been over.
yeah, never.
I definitely think Bednar pitched his way into that. I believe that. Interestingly enough, I think Yarbrough is pitching his way into that. Perhaps the most surprisingly of all, and I think he needs to. I think he'll pitch. I wouldn't be surprised if he pitches more in the next couple of weeks, particularly if they lock down a postseason spot. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they try and get Blackburn into that. I know that he kind of surprised us a couple of times, but when he's been given opportunities the last couple of weeks, he's done fairly nice things with them. Now, granted, some of it's been in low leverage situations, so I do acknowledge that. But again, innings are innings at the end of it all. So, and I also want to mention a stat that just I don't know if you were you on X today at all?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. So perhaps so I'll ask you this, and then just tell me if you already saw what I'm about to talk about, and then I won't waste any of either of our time with it. Holy smokes! So I talk about fielding independent ERA on here. There's a Yankee reliever who has since August 10th, so just over a month, pitched 14 innings, has a fielding independent ERA that leads baseball it's a 0.08 fielding independent ERA. That's not a misprint. 0.08 fielding independent ERA since August 10th, so just over a month.
I mean, there's only 2 guys I can think of.
Go ahead.
And of course, because if it's not Bednar,
nope,
then it's got to be Williams. No.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And I feel like at some points this year I was the last one standing on the Devin Williams train, which kind of at times I'm sorry, the Devin Williams ship, which kind of at times felt like the Devin Williams Titanic. But again, it's just and again, I realize how ridiculous it sounds 4 or 5 months into the season to still be saying the guy's getting unlucky. But I mean, we watched him. We watched the guy like the guy was his pitches were at times hanging a little bit too much in the zone, just enough for guys to go make not great contact on it, but just enough contact to hit one, right where they needed to be. I think earlier in the season, not late in the season, but I think earlier in the season, it was helped out by the fact that our fielders were moving around about as well as lampposts. But it just again, if I look going into this postseason, just based on track record, other than Bednar and maybe when he gets going, not in the last week, but maybe when he gets going, a Fernando Cruz. Is there anybody that I still trust just based off of track record the way that I would trust Williams? No, I would still, with the struggles he had earlier in the season, I would still rather see, if I'm in a high leverage situation and I don't have Bednar available, I would still rather see Williams come into that situation. I will take my chances with him in a high leverage situation before I'll take my chances with a guy like Weaver the way he's pitching right now. Certainly Doval, Weaver the way he's been hurt. And guys like that, and again, I know that I've had more optimism with him than other people have, but and again, I am not saying I want him in closing out a must-win Game 7. I am not saying that, but I'm saying if you've got to run a guy early in the 3rd inning, and you need somebody to come in and just get you one clean inning to get you to a couple of the other guys that you've got available, and you've got a 1-run lead you're trying to protect, or a 2-run lead you're trying to protect. I don't know who I'm bringing in that I trust more than him.
I'm still trying to figure out where Tim Hill has been, because he's been arguably, if not for Williams lately, he's been the Yankees' best high leverage pitcher all year.
Right.
So I'm trying to figure out if they just want to leave him only for, because the thing is too, they keep saying that they only want him to face, or more or less, they keep showing that they only want him to face lefties. But when
Well,
Boone,
the tough thing with that is that you no longer. Hang on, my window's bugging out. Can you hear and see me? Okay.
yeah, because yeah, you're
Okay,
still
I
good.
don't know what that was about. But the thing is, you no longer have bring a guy in for one to face one batter. Lefty specialist is no longer a thing, because you got to bring in a guy now, and they got to face at least three batters. So my guess is that's part of it. My guess is that they're trying to use him for when teams are stacking their lineups lefty against us. That's my guess with part of it. But again, you have to manage in a way, and this has been one of my criticisms of Boone this year. Yes, I do criticism sometimes. I know it's going to drop a lot of jaws on this show, but that has been one of my criticisms with him the last couple of months, is that he will make, and this is the thing. Fans will say they don't like his bullpen management, and I disagree with what they're saying, but I agree with what they're saying at the same time. What I mean is I have issues with his bullpen usage, but different than the ones than the average fan has said. Like, for example, my issues, have been with like that is one example, but it's also the, I think at times with certain pitchers, he will use again, he's talked about it, and we've heard the phrase all year long, find a lane for this guy, find a lane for that guy. We've heard that phrase all year long. And I think sometimes, I don't know if it's he looks at something a certain way with righty lefty. I don't know if it's a question about the hot hand or whatever, because I know that the Yankees have said repeatedly that they think that hot and cold is overrated, which quite frankly I agree with them. And I'll explain that a little bit later. Largely has to do with sample size, because again, I'm sorry, I don't care if somebody's 3 for 9 over a 15-year career against somebody. But and despite what Kurt says, that's not what analytics is about. But I'm not looking at this situation as a I'm willing to throw a year's worth of statistics out the window for one game, one at bat, like they say in Moneyball. And I think sometimes at that point it does become about who's hot and things of that nature. I think it's different when you're literally just facing one guy in one at bat, and I think a lot of it does come down to track record. I think a lot of it does come down to what the guy has accomplished, not just against that player or that guy, lefty versus righty. I think that there's more that goes into it, and I think sometimes I question what Boone is utilizing. Not a grab all or catch all analytics pro or con, but what specific data he's using that's influencing the decisions he's making. Because he might have good data and just might not be using the same data that I would use, for example.
Yeah.
You can be using data and using the wrong stuff. Or at least stuff that I would, or at least not the stuff that I would use. But again, he obviously has far more experience than I do. I'm not pretending otherwise. But so that's my thing there. But again, if I'm looking at obviously Bednar, and was obviously how much I was pounding the table for him, and I'm so thrilled he's worked out the way that he has, because obviously whenever we pick up a guy from a team like the Nomads or the Pirates or whoever, it's hard to pinpoint whether it'll translate well to Yankee Stadium, particularly out of a division like the NL Central that really has no major market teams aside from the Cubs. I kind of consider the Cardinals like a B tier market. But yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at on that.
You see, what, because what was weird to me when they always talk about finding a lane, like there was the one game against Boston, I think it was Boston, where Boston literally 1 through 9 was all lefties. So knowing that they were all lefties, and I think it pretty much stayed that way until the later innings, until they until way on the later innings, maybe like the 8th inning. I think they finally brought in a couple different guys that were righties. But that's where in the 7th inning, if it's still a bunch of lefties, why not? Like, and these aren't guys that have like reverse splits against Tim Hill. These are guys that Tim Hill can get out.
Can
So
get it, yeah.
it's like that's where I was like, okay, these guys, it's 3 lefties in a row or 4 or 5 lefties in a row. Why isn't Tim Hill used here, especially in a
Right.
clean inning? Or
And
there was because that would have been a good game, at least if nothing else, to get him work, because we haven't seen him in like what, 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks.
I'm double checking that right here.
So or at least it feels that way because he just doesn't get many
Right.
appearances at this point.
Right. Yeah, since August 31st, he has pitched 3 times. He pitched on the 9th against Detroit, the 10th against Detroit, and the 15th at Minnesota. So yeah, in 19 days, he's pitched 3 times, which is not that much when you've pretty much had every single game without a day off, or every single day without a game off for the most part.
Yeah.
Real quick before we continue that, I just want to get to some of what Kenny's saying. Good evening, fellas. I have a quick NFL question for you both. Which coach is under the most pressure to get a win this week? Dable, Ben Johnson, and McDaniels, aka Scoops, in my opinion, are all in trouble. Oh my goodness, I can't shake that. Even with the new hair, I can't shake that. You go first, man.
See, we're talking about like the battle between the 2-0-2 teams, like the Chiefs and the Giants, and it's like Andy Reid will still be here no matter what, even if they're 0-3, because it's like the Chiefs, you can't count them out until it physically says they've been eliminated from playoff contention. So
yeah.
Andy Reid is obviously fine. Dable is probably the one that needs this win most, because I mean, he's the one that they've been saying coming into this season that he was already starting to get on the hot seat. I mean, I think he's personally more of a scapegoat for the Giants' problems because they go deeper than just him.
Yeah, to me, if I were, and I'm not saying this as an Eagles fan, but I'd move off Joe Shane before I'd move off of him.
Yeah. So like, I think he definitely needs it, especially if things are trending that way. He's going to need this win.
Yeah.
I don't think Ben Johnson's in trouble. It's only his first year as a head coach. If this happens again next year, then maybe. But not in his first year. McDaniels, I think, could be. I think. Or sorry, not McDaniels. McDaniel. I think the Dolphins. There's a lot of talent there, but I also think at this point that Tua just doesn't fit what they want to do anymore. Kind of, between the injuries and kind of just being a little bit, the game, like the game is kind of caught up to their offense and the way that they like to run it.
I think that's well put.
So I think McDaniel probably, if this season doesn't turn around fast, I don't think it's a must win, but I think they lose tonight against the Bills. The Bills are just far better than they are.
Right.
But
and I'm still not convinced that Tua is fully healthy.
Yeah, and that's a big problem. I mean, even what Tua said in the press conference the other day, saying that he told Tyreek Hill that, hey, I'm not always going to, basically paraphrasing, but I'm not always going to hit you on a perfect, right in the chest on a dart on a line. He's like,
didn't he also get controversy? He said something along the lines of like, I know Josh Allen's much better than me or something.
I think there might have been something like that. I don't remember, but I think there might have been something like that. So I mean, Tua's not even saying the right things in the press conferences now. So that's
which
really
is crazy to me.
So I think that they need this win down in Miami, but I don't see how they're gonna get it. But yeah, I think Dable's probably the most, I guess, under pressure. Honestly, as weird as it sounds, even though they're 1-1, and I know it's his first season. Like, everybody talks about the fit that Liam Cohen is down in Jacksonville.
Oh,
and I look at his situation and I'm like, well, if he doesn't do anything kind of crazy with them, because they do have a decent roster. It's not bad. It's just I don't know how long it's going to take for them to gel, but I think they could use a win this week. But out of those specific 3 guys that you mentioned, Kenny, I think I think Dable's the one that needs it the most, just because he's the one that's been kind of inching toward that hot seat pretty much since the Giants won that playoff game a few
Mhm.
weeks ago. So I I think he's probably the one that's going to need it, and I don't think it's really
Mhm.
his fault what's happened in New York. So,
Mhm.
but I just think with the way things are going, it's probably him out of those three.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Of the three that you mentioned, I'm gonna agree also that um, well, I mean, I'm going to agree with what you talked about with the scapegoat thing, and I do think that Brian Dable of those three is probably, I can't for the life of me see Ben Johnson when Chicago thinks they finally have paired Caleb Williams, even though I'm not a fan of him and don't think that this is there that's going to be the guy. I think that and also Ben Johnson took or sorry passed over so many jobs to finally go to the Chicago job and get with Caleb Williams. I don't see that that divorce happening suddenly 2 games into the. That almost never happens to lose it to snap sorry to sever ties with a coach that early
Hmm.
um, without massive, and I mean massive off field demolition. So I don't see that at all. McDaniel, I think, is possible, but I think I think they're going to give him a little more rope into the season.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, so Dable, I think, is most up there. I'm going to throw 2 names at you, both of whom I don't think should be under a lot of pressure right now, but I think are. One of them is the coach out of Carolina, Dave Canales. They're
yeah,
0-2 right now. I think that they wanted to see more out of Bryce Young than they have so far. Granted, when you goof around with things like Adam Thielen and one thing or another, and get as much sort of turnover as I think that they have, it also didn't help. Obviously, that trade with the Bears obviously was impactful on some of that. So we see obviously how much the Bears were able to recoup there. Um, so I do think that that's an element there that and also Dave Tepper is just notorious as one of the more, sorry, I almost said the wrong word, impatient owners in the NFL. And typically when you have a reputation as that, typically it rears its ugly head at some point. I think
yeah.
he's been trying to sit on his hands the last couple of years, but I just wouldn't be surprised if especially if there's an ugly loss, or like just a loss that's either on a big game that's on television or to a division rival that they think that they're better than or whatever. If there's a loss like that, that's either a wide margin or an ugly loss. I could definitely see Dave Tepper being trigger finger again, and another one who is perhaps the only trigger figure owner more than to the extent that Dave Tepper is. That was a horrible sentence. Only to a wider extent than he is Cleveland owner Jimmy Haslam. I don't think Kevin Stefanski deserves to be fired at all.
No, yeah,
I think Kevin Stefanski has done great things with what he's done there. I think some of his most impressive work has been done when he didn't have Baker Mayfield, and I think that quite frankly, if I were Haslam, I'd be closer to extending him than I would be to moving off of him. But seeing I followed the Browns very closely for obvious reasons for the last 15 or so years. And I've seen, with the Farmers commercial goes, we know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two. And that's been the case with me with Cleveland. And I find it hard to believe that a start that's projected to go as poorly as they are, particularly in a division that seems to have at least 2 very strong teams. It looks like the Steelers might be more legitimate than perhaps we thought. Now, it may be counteracted by the fact that Cincinnati now appears to not be as formidable as we thought now that they've lost Joe Burrow, and we hope that he has a full and successful recovery. So maybe that buys him some more time. But I just don't think Jimmy Haslam is going to put up with the patience that's required to now sit through and develop a new situation, from the ground up offensively with the coach that he's been paying since 2020. Something about that just does not smell Haslam-esque to me. Now, let me emphasize that is not to say that I think that this is the right decision. I think the opposite of that. But those are the two guys that, if you're asking me to name my own guys that I think could potentially be in trouble going forward in the near future, look for Dave Canales and Kevin Stefanski, in my opinion. Kenny says he agrees. If Williams is hot, roll the dice with him. Who would be the one team you don't want to face as a fan, as manager? Fan, I don't want to face the Astros. Manager, the Red Sox. I'm not sure the differentiation you're making there, but I'll just give you the one team I really don't think I'd want to face. And I'm trying to think right now. Actually, Brandon, is there one coming to you? Because if there is, I'll let you go first because I'm going to think for a second.
See, it's a tough question because it's like when you get to the postseason, every team you face is going to give you a lot of challenges. So it's right. Whenever we hear that question of who would you rather face, it's like, well, you're still facing a playoff team no matter who it is. So right. So it's like there's no real preferable matchup in my eyes. Right. But if there's a team that I think the Yankees could pull out a series against, I legitimately think that it's I don't know why, but for some reason I think it is Houston, and
I'd have to agree with that.
And the reason why I think it's Houston, I mean, we've been saying it all year. This is between last year and this year, they just don't look like the Astros of old. They just, I mean, the Yankees, what was it, last week or a week and a half ago, they took 2 out of 3 from them. They looked good while doing it. And even in that one loss, they kind of got, for lack of a better word, screwed by the umpire.
Yeah.
So really, you can make a case they should have swept the Astros. And I think that, in the 2 games they did win, they looked really good against them. So, Valdez had the Yankees number, but the last couple times he's faced the Yankees, they've hit him hard. So I like their chances if they face him again, which they will if it comes down to that. I don't think their pitching staff is as good as the others out there. Like, I think the only other weaker pitching staff to me is probably Toronto out of all the ones they could face, because the Mariners have a top rotation. The Tigers have a top rotation despite struggling lately. The Red Sox have just had the Yankees number all year, even despite winning 2 out of 3. They've just had the Yankees number, and their pitching. I mean, the Yankees have proved in last series that they could hit, Crochet, they could hit Bayo, that they could hit Giolito, but the chances of doing it again in such a short period, it's like that's not kind of the matchup you want. Especially for, I think, a Red Sox team that I believe has really good numbers on the road. So if the Yankees were to play them at Yankee Stadium, that would actually be a tougher task than people think.
Mm-hmm.
So I think out of all those teams, like, to me, Toronto has probably the peskiest hitting in the AL, where those guys don't go down 1, 2, 3. Every single at bat is at least 5, 6 pitches deep, so they make you work. I mean, they've made the Yankees pitchers work every time that they faced them. And I think there's actually a stat where they work the most amount of pitchers or most amount of counts in the MLB. I think this year.
I have to look that up, but I'm pretty sure that you're correct, or at least close to it.
Yeah. I know I'm at least close, because I know I mentioned stuff like that on the broadcast.
Right.
But so Toronto's lineup is just scary. Like, to me, that's just a lineup that the Yankees just have not been able to nail down. And I think that, I think Boston, like basically Toronto and Boston, that's your division, and they've owned you all year, and the pitching has done well against you all year. So those two are not preferable. But Detroit, I mean, you just lost 2 out of 3 to them. They don't have a great lineup, but they have guys that are just solid all around hitters. That can do a little bit. They have a little bit of pop, a little bit of contact, a little bit of speed, whatever it is. They don't steal a lot of bases, but they do run the bases well. So if they hit one in the gap, they're scoring runs, which they've done pretty much all season. So, and then you get to the Mariners. Besides their rotation, I mean, they have, J-Rod's come along well the second half of the season. They've had a couple guys really kind of come out of nowhere second half of the season and play really well. And then, of course, you have the only other contender for AL MVP in Cal Raleigh, who's launching seems like 2 home runs a game. So
Right.
when you think about and then you get to the Astros, the only real to me threat you're going to get in their lineup because I don't think I don't think Carlos Correa's had that great of a year.
No, Correa's got the name, but that was more of a nostalgia pickup. That was not
Yeah.
that has not really been a needle mover, and I think a lot of us didn't expect it to be a big needle mover when it happened.
Yeah. And then now we know they're missing Jordan Alvarez. So who's their biggest power threat and one of the best power threats in baseball. So
Right.
when you think about that and kind of how it matches up against the Yankees, pretty much the Astros are probably the only favorable matchup for the Yankees. Like the one that you could, I wouldn't say favorable, but the one that you could see the Yankees getting through. Probably with the littlest amount of resistance. So
Yep.
There's no real preferable matchup when you get to the postseason, especially in baseball, because anything can happen. And this isn't,
Right, of course.
This isn't the AL of last year where it was just the Yankees just rolled through everybody, more or less. So the AL is a lot tougher this year, especially with the Yankees kind of taking a little bit of a step down from where they were last year. So I definitely think that in the end, to me, it's probably Houston. That's probably where I sit.
That you'd rather face.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now that makes a lot of sense. The team that I would not want to face, which I'm pretty sure was the original question from Kenny.
Yeah.
My gut instinct wants to say Detroit, just because again, we've lost all but 2 games to them this year, and one of the games that we won against them was a 1-run game.
Yep.
The
other game was seemingly a punt game for Detroit. So
the other game, that was the last game that they went against us, which was it was a 9-3 game. But anyway, going back to what I was saying, and the other thing too is Detroit. Obviously, their manager is AJ Hinch. They've got Gleyber Torres in there now, which I don't think it can be understated that when players go to other teams, they bring intel from what you guys do. And so I wouldn't be surprised if and there's other players there as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if I don't think that's a major thing, but I do think everything is something when it comes to the playoffs. I'm going to throw a team in here that's not even guaranteed to make the playoffs, not even by many considered likely to make the playoffs, but the way that they're playing right now, especially since we haven't faced them in several months, I'm not looking forward to facing Cleveland if they sneak in. I think that's a team. Our team has not over the last year or two played particularly well in Cleveland. The ball does not travel well there, which we know what an element of our game that is. Now, granted, we have been relying more on getting the ground ball when it comes to pitching now, so perhaps that neutralizes itself. But again, a lot of people, and myself included, think that sometimes all you have to do is put it all together at the right time. If that's what Cleveland's doing right now. I watched Cleveland last year against us, even when Emmanuel, the better Class A, was not having not throwing some of his best baseball. That was a pesky team to get through. And now Stephen Vogt has another year of management under his belt. So there are just elements to me that just say if we have to go to Cleveland in a series, that's not something I'd be looking forward to doing. A couple of weeks ago, if you asked me, I may have said I don't want to go. The one I would least want to do is go to Seattle on the road, because again, not a great park offensively. But we've actually fared pretty well somehow in Seattle this year, which is yet another thing about the season that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. My pick would probably be Detroit, and then you throw maybe the the Guardians in there as like a wild card, no pun intended.
Yeah.
But just I know people say, oh, when a game gets that bad, you have to wash it out. that game was what we saw in that series was too late in the season and was too important of a series for me to just wash it out. I know it was only 1 to 2 bad games, but it was 1 to 2 bad games of a 12-game stretch that we knew that every game was critical. I obviously don't think it ended the season, but it sure as shucks made me not want to face Detroit. If or at least not have me, eager to face Detroit.
Yeah.
Kenny says, and then he goes to Stefanski as well. I like him and give him a chance for my Giants. Please, God, don't let that happen. Mr. Burns says, watching from Cedar Hill, Texas. Mr. Burns, I hope you're doing well. Thank you for tuning in. Kenny says, as a fan, I want the Red Sox to add to the history and what a way to gain momentum, in my opinion. Mr. Burns says, the Jays are playing great. However, I must admit that I get somewhat nervous when they bring Hoffman into the game. I'm guessing that means Jeff Hoffman. No lead is safe. Throw your fifth starter into the bullpen for the playoffs and tell them it will be critical to their playoff run. It's not a demotion; it's a strategic move. And this is something that I want to mention as well. And it kind of goes back to almost the conversation I was having earlier about Clayton Kershaw. Is I think this year more than ever, I know we've been seeing an increasing amount of it the last couple of years, but I think this year more than ever, you're going to see the titles of starter and reliever. I mean, absolutely diddly blank, because teams want to use their best their best pitchers in their biggest moments. Yeah. I don't think a team is going to shy away from taking out your best or your starter rather in after 2 or 3 innings if they think that they've got a guy out there who may not last for as long, but they're comfortable. What they think is going to be the biggest 3 outs of the game is the guys that are coming up right now. If they have to get through 2, 3, and 4 in a tie game, they want to get out those guys. And if they think that their pitcher or a pitcher that they have available is potentially going to be more valuable in one time through the order than perhaps their guy is their starter is in going through for a second time, they'll figure it out later. This game, managing the postseason it's about balancing both, but more than not, it's about getting the outs that are right in front of you. And I think that's going to be something that I think you're going to see perhaps more. I'll be curious to see how the number of pitchers that are used in this postseason stacks up against recent years, because I wouldn't be surprised if this becomes a record offseason or a record postseason for the amount of pitchers that are used by all teams combined. Because I think that the days that you're going to be seeing of starters going 5-6 consistently in every game, I think those days are over.
Yeah, I don't. Everybody wants to see their starters, dominate and go 6-7, whatever it may be. But especially when you get to the postseason, that's just not possible. When one run can change a game, and so a guy might be throwing 5 innings, but if he gets 2 runs, regardless of that pitch count, he's coming out most likely. It's kind of a weird dynamic to think that way in terms of new school baseball, but it's the truth. And then going back to what to the whole Jays thing, like since I basically flipped the question on its head, that's what I was kind of getting towards, was that the Jays are probably the one team, like, in my mind, I don't think that there's such a thing as preferable matchups, but
yeah,
because you gotta play who you gotta play, and that's it. But at the same time, if I'm thinking of a team I wouldn't want to play, I think it is just the Jays, especially if that series is in Toronto. I mean, if the Yankees are pulling out the division, if that series is in Toronto, which most likely it probably will be if it gets to that point. I mean, it's just that's just been for some reason, it's just been a kind of I don't want to say house of horrors, but that stadium is almost like the same thing, obviously with the Buffalo Bills, with how loud they get, or how Seattle has the 12th man. When you go to Toronto, that stadium gets rocking, especially inside of a dome. More or less. I mean, we saw how they were back when guys like Bautista and Donaldson and Encarnacion were in their prime, smacking home runs left and right for them, during those years, and how loud that stadium got. If the Yankees can travel up there, I mean, which is not far for them, but you have to travel up there and deal with that crowd, deal with how much those hitters have kind of owned you all year, owned your pitching staff, and
I
how
don't know if this would be a factor also, but also don't forget they're one of the few teams that still plays on friggin' AstroTurf.
yeah, and all it takes is one bad bounce, especially in the postseason. So
Yeah.
that's a place that literally can create about 3, 4, 5 bad bounces in an inning. So
Yeah,
it's
especially with I mean, obviously we've seen, even if it's not injuries, we've seen our defense get crossed up by a bad bounce multiple times this season. So yeah, I wasn't even thinking about that. But I wanted to throw that in there.
I
Uh,
love
Josh
Josh
B
goes.
hashtag Tika says Toronto in the regular season is the library of Ben there. LOL. It's actually funny because even though obviously I'm a lifelong Yankee fan, Toronto is actually the closest team to where I grew up. So I've actually been to Rogers Center more than I've been to any other stadium. Almost definitely my least favorite stadium to which I've ever been when it came to watching baseball games. Do not care for that stadium at all. It's
But they do show up for the postseason. They definitely do.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah.
Um, I and I think that especially the last couple of years, I think that they're one of the teams that we look at. Like we used to say about the Dodgers, how they kind of showed up every regular season and then went quiet in the postseason. I think for a period of time we were looking at the Blue Jays like that because the Blue Jays were sneaky aggressive at several years.
Yeah.
To go and get guys like a David Price, they went and got guys like a Max Scherzer at one point. They went and got guys like I think they had Verlander at one point, didn't they?
Let's see.
No,
you think Scherzer? No, now
I'm trying to think.
Because Verlander's pitched for Detroit, the Astros, the Giants.
Giants. For some reason I thought that he also went to Toronto at one point. No. David Price and there's somebody else back in the early 20 or like the mid 2010s that they got.
Are you thinking of R.A. Dickey?
No.
No,
this was a trade deadline move. I'm pretty sure that happened in the offseason. But oh shucks, this is gonna annoy the crud out of me now. Scherzer, Price. This is driving me nuts. But anyway, I've seen them make several moves during the regular season at the trade deadline and be aggressive, and then not have anything to show for it. Later on. So and they are quickly. I mean, they are now past that 30-year mark since their last title, and I think that Shapiro and company are really wanting to be the at the head of turning this thing around. So I wouldn't be surprised if there that was a factor as well with that.
I'm still trying to think of who you were thinking of. I'm in my mind.
That makes two of us because I know that one of the moves was Tulo, but I'm thinking of a pitcher, not a position player.
That's it's gonna literally haunt me.
Yeah, I'm. This is pitching.
How long was he there after he got traded?
That part I unfortunately can't remember, but I swore that I had the team correct. There's always the chance that I have the team wrong, but I was so sure about what I was saying. But obviously, that happens.
Yeah, things happen.
But anyway, yeah, let's get back to this, and then maybe it'll come to us as we're speaking. But let's see, is there any updated? No. So before we sign off here, because we went a little bit longer on that than I think either of us anticipated.
Yeah.
But let's real quick, we'll jump in on this. The NFL. We just finished the second. We're about to start the third week. We've watched two. What I won't say that they were particularly pretty games to watch, but 2-0 is 2-0, as they say. What are your biggest takeaways from the Eagles the first 2 weeks? And kind of how do you what are your kind of thoughts on how the division you see it shaking out? Maybe not over the entirety of the next 15 weeks, but the near future here.
Yeah, I still firmly believe we'll win the division. We still have far and away the best roster in the division. We still have far and away the kind of just the kind of, I guess, even in close games or ugly games, we find ways to pull them out. I mean, Washington has not looked good to start the season in either of their games, and they got killed by Green Bay. Um, the Cowboys, they won over the Giants, but they let Russell Wilson throw for 450 yards on their defense. Their defenses, both those defenses, are not looking good to start the season. So really, I think it's all set up for Philly to kind of own it this year, to finally break that 20-year long drought of never having a repeat champion, which they were the last ones to do so. But
Right.
through 2 weeks, and Josh knows how I feel about this because Josh was like, "Oh, you won a Super Bowl last year. You're 2-0 this year. What are you complaining about?" And I get it. Believe me, I say that too. I'll take the wins at the end of the day, but it's just how much talent this team has. I'm not saying that they have to open up the entire playbook because no team does that in the first 2 weeks, but they've just got to do better than running plays that we saw that resemble the 2023 Eagles when everything fell apart. They need to do a better job of scheming guys open because the defense is fine. The defense has been great through 2 weeks. It's just the offense just needs to find a way to get their playmakers the ball, and that's not a Jalen Hurts problem. And I've said this for the last week and a half now. That is a Kevin Patullo problem because Kevin Patullo has been the pass game coordinator for the Eagles pretty much since Sirianni got there. So
Yeah.
I think he's the second longest tenured coach on the staff with Sirianni, or I think tied for first. I think he came in with Sirianni. So the passing game, has never, if this is the guy that's been on the staff this long, and the offense is starting to look like it's the 2023 offense all over again.
Oh boy.
Those aren't good indicators of where this season's going to go.
No.
Listen, I'll take the wins because Jalen Hurts is playing risk averse football, and he who makes the least mistakes wins the game. That 9 times out of 10 in any sport, that's usually how it goes. You make the least amount of mistakes, you'll win the game. But you can't put up those performances against teams like the Packers or the Lions or anybody like that. You just can't. Or the Bills or not the Bengals now because they don't have Joe Burrow, but the Ravens. You can't play like that against those teams because if you do, you're going to lose. So it's just, week 1 I was okay with because Jalen actually had a really good game. This past week, I think both quarterbacks just, they were getting, it was a lot of pressure throughout the game on both sides. But, I mean, ultimately what kind of helped, really kind of seal that game. I mean, and they showed the NFL Films side of things was, and this is what separates, the winners from the losers is the mentality. And you see it even on the sideline, even throughout the week or throughout the past few days, they've been posting the audio clips of what the Eagles have been saying on the sideline during the Chiefs game. And Jalen's just a winner. That mentality can carry a team even in its darkest days. When you have a guy that is so laser focused on the only thing that matters is winning the game, that will carry you through a tough stretch. The offense isn't performing at the highest level that we know it can. Now last year, through 2 weeks, the passing offense, actually the numbers, believe it or not, were worse. It doesn't feel like they were, but they were. Overall, through the first 2 weeks, the yardage was worse, and I believe the yards per attempt were worse. So I think overall, as long as Jalen and this is what he's good at. And this is what most quarterbacks should be good at. You should be very efficient, which he is, and you should not turn the ball over. And the thing is, if they can score touchdowns in different ways without having to ask him to throw 5-6 touchdowns a game, then that's a good thing at the end of the day. I mean, you're finding different ways to win. And this is what I was telling some people on social media that were trying to tell me, oh, Jalen Hurts just cannot find the open receiver. I'm like, well, first of all, that's false. Watch more football, because if you're telling me that, it shows you have a JV high school IQ. So second of all, because I could literally pull out screenshot after screenshot after screenshot after screenshot of plays where there was no receiver open at the snap, and there was no receiver open 5 seconds later for Jalen to dump the ball off to for a significant amount of yards. So, and also not having Dallas Goedert last week, people don't understand. Dallas Goedert opens up a lot for that passing game, because in week 1, Jalen, I think Dallas caught like 10 passes for it was like what? It was like 90 yards or something like that. Like, he actually had a really good game. And people don't realize, how important he is to the Eagles offense and how much he opens up for other guys. So the tough thing about last week, but the play calling was rough, but there were some positives. Saquon started, compared to week 1, where he just got absolutely, boxed in the whole game. We started seeing the Saquon from last year.
Right.
They were stacking the box, but he was still getting 5, 6, 7 yards here or there, which was nice to see. So, and that's the only thing going forward, is that teams are so dead set on stopping Saquon this year, and just like the Chiefs were in the Super Bowl, they were so dead set on stopping him. But Jalen Hurts on the offense, they're like, okay, you want to stop him? Okay, well, you're leaving all the other guys wide open, or you're leaving room for him to run. And
yeah,
and when push comes to shove, when no one's open, the one thing that Jalen does best is improvise. He doesn't turn the ball over, and he'll always pick up the first down with his legs. Or if not, he'll throw the ball away and live for another down. It might not always be pretty, but in the end, those are the little things that do win football games. So I think in the end, it's not pretty. We know it's not pretty.
No.
But they're 2-0, and the thing is, I have faith in a Super Bowl MVP that has outplayed every elite quarterback he's gone against in this league. I have faith in that guy at the end of the day to do that job, to win games, and they are 2-0 with that guy. Because here's the thing. In 2023, they hadn't won anything yet. They were not Super Bowl champs. Hurts, was not Super Bowl MVP. But he proved a lot of people wrong last year in that Steelers game when they said he couldn't throw, and he destroyed that defense.
Yep.
That was really good at the time also. And then he goes into the playoffs. The game against the Packers wasn't pretty, but he got the job done. The game again, that was a decent defense at the time. The game against the Rams, literally first drive of the game, he runs for about a 40-yard touchdown. 40. It's not a tush push TD. It's a 40-yard rushing touchdown from Jalen Hurts. And then from that point on, it rolled. And then we got the snow. But even through the snow, he was still completing passes. It wasn't pretty, but he was still completing passes and making the correct reads. And ultimately, it's what won them the game, because people also don't realize that on that Saquon run, that last touchdown, Jalen checked into a different run play. That was, that's why Saquon slid over, and they handed the ball off, and they went up, pretty much up down the seam. So, people don't realize that there's more to quarterback than just making a throw. It's about making the correct read for even on a run play for it to have success.
Right. And then making the correct decision and then executing that decision.
And he did that. And then so we get past that game. And then what happened in the NFC Championship game? He and the entire team destroyed Washington, who people thought were going to upset us. They destroyed them, and then they went against Kansas City and destroyed them too. And you know what else he did? He broke his own record for rushing yards by a quarterback in the Super Bowl. He did it in 2023 in the 2022 off the 2022 season. They lost to the Chiefs, but he set a record for most rushing yards in the Super Bowl by a QB. Plus, also outplayed Mahomes in that game. Then he outplays Mahomes again last year, in the Super Bowl. So,
and then he outplays Mahomes again in this game, arguably.
Yeah, you can argue that because honestly, the Mahomes bomb TD he threw at the end of the game, you could argue was more or less garbage time because they basically scored that TD with no timeouts left and 3 minutes to go. So Philly just took
Right.
a couple first downs and it was over. So, so outside of that bomb TD, what did Mahomes really do in this past game? Nothing. Um, and that wasn't so much a great throw on his part. It was a blown coverage by our safety that made Quinion Mitchell look bad, and it wasn't Quinion Mitchell's fault.
Right.
Um, so it overall it doesn't look good, but and I've been heavily critical of the past 2 weeks of the play calling just because I know what this team can do because we've seen it. So
He is just so the people who watch and know, he is not exaggerating. I've been watching both games with him. Heavily critical is definitely putting it
is
mildly.
is the yeah that's the PG term for it.
Yeah.
But but it's just because I know, we know what this team is capable of. But
Yep.
at the end of the day, I mean, I even said at the end of the Chiefs game, I said, "Thank God we won." I said, at least, if nothing else, we won the game." And hell, even Jalen Hurts said to Chris Jones at the end of the game, Chris Jones like, you barely threw for 100 passing yards," and Jalen Hurts, has a couple expletives in there.
Yeah.
Said, "Shut up, we won the game."
Yeah.
So, so
Which I just is there more Philly quarterback of a way to end a game and to go against a guy trash talking you than that?
I
That was
love
that was basically his way of saying scoreboard blanker.
Yeah, and not gonna lie, that's a that's a multifaceted weak comeback for Chris Jones because you barely threw for 100 yards. Okay, that would make sense if if the quarterback you were trash talking wasn't in a victory formation.
Yeah, no,
And
well, I think we both said that. I think because I was I was watching the. Well, I mean, we both were obviously, but watching that game, and you would think that if you were gonna say something like that you would think that you would at least have a lead, or you would think that maybe your individual numbers against the guy were at least strong, which they weren't. And like I don't know. Last time I checked, they didn't give out rings for yardage.
and then you get what else to get to like with that trash talk and why it's equally as funny. And the thing is, it's not the only thing he said during the game. By the way, there was a thing that came out today that also said that, oh yeah, they ran the same play 7 times. Yeah, so they ran the same play 7 times,
Stop it.
which means you couldn't stop it.
Yeah.
So
Like
so
I mean, even Travis Kelsey came out a couple days ago and was like, it's they wouldn't have kept going to it if I'm paraphrasing, but he said something akin to they wouldn't have kept going to it if we didn't give them a reason to.
Yeah, and then but then the worst part about the whole trash talk with Chris Jones is, so you're making fun of Jalen Hurts while he's in victory formation. That's one thing, but then to also realize, it's so you're not trash talking a guy who beat you well, like you're bitter about the guy putting up insane
No.
numbers on you, but you're trash talking a guy that you said barely threw for 100 yards. So what does that say about you guys that you still lost that game?
Yeah. Well, and also the the other thing, maybe at least do it when you've won at least one of the last two big games you've played against them.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
like you could not have been speaking out of more of a hole to try and
They've lost 3 straight games against him.
lost 3 straight games and arguably 3 of the most visible games you've played.
Yeah.
A Super Bowl, a game before that, and now a game on national TV. Holy smokes!
Mhm.
Like it reminds me of oh Lord, what's the guy's name? There's a guy in the NBA who was just known for just trash talking completely ridiculously for no reason. He played for the Memphis Grizzlies, and now he plays for the Rockets. Dylan something, I think his name is.
Oh Jesus!
You know who I'm talking about, don't you?
I know what you're talking about. Bob.
Dylan Brooks.
That's it. Yeah, there it is. That I was
Yeah.
on tip of my tongue. Yeah, Dylan Brooks.
He was basically giving me like Dylan Brooks type energy because basically he was just talking to talk with literally nothing to back it up. And but like it's one thing to talk with nothing to back it up, but talking with like comically a comical amount of stuff against you, if that's making sense. Like, holy smokes!
That's
Yeah,
literally, you know what that is? That's basically like that's like in a schoolyard fight. If someone is pummeling you, if a school bully is pummeling you, and you're sitting there still trash talking, getting you know what whooped.
yeah,
So like
yeah.
come on.
It was like if or if that kid was like standing up looking at Mike Tyson above him, like as there's as all 206 of his bones are fractured.
Yeah,
Josh, whatever his last name is,
he
says,
got it.
yes. All right, thank you. And then he also sent a message that I'm not going to put on the but
Yeah,
it says basically shut your two-word colorful term up by Golden. I wanted to give that more airtime than I can, but I haven't cleared to have this episode not be PG friendly, so I just want to stay safe on that one. But
yeah,
no, Josh, know that your sentiments are very much appreciated and reciprocated between Brandon and I.
yep,
So with that being said, we did go a little bit over, which doesn't surprise me even without Jay. Going to give him one more shout out. Looking forward to having him back next week. We talked a good amount tonight of both baseball and football. And thanks again to everybody who got a chance to tune in, whether that was at the end of the day or at work or wherever it may be. Appreciate from all over that everybody got a chance to come in and hang out with us tonight. And Brandon and I, for those who want to tune in, Brandon, why don't you tell them where we're going to be in just a couple of hours from now?
yeah. So after the game tonight, which is kicking off pretty much right about now, after the Bills Dolphins game, we will be live streaming on YouTube. We will be on our own platform on Millions, and we'll be doing our Football After Hours pod. That'll be probably around, I would say. Well, it depends when the game
It's
finishes.
upon conclusion of the Dolphins Bills game.
Yeah. So yeah, but I would say roughly about 11ish. If it's a blowout, it'll be earlier. It'll be probably about 10:30.
It's 11 Eastern time, right?
Yeah, Eastern
Yeah,
time.
so 10 o'clock Central time.
Yep.
And all right, and we'll all be back hopefully as a full group next Thursday, September 25th. Same Scoop time, same Scoop channel. Scoop and Brandon